Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 24 of the Rich Sony podcast. We have our friend Andrew Miles back for the second time. How you doing, Andrew?
Woo! I'm pretty good, and you?
I'm good. I'm good. You're the first one coming onto the show after the hiatus, and it feels really good. The hiatus being that my wife had our second child, so I just took a little time to just relax. But now I'm ready to start getting into the podcast again. It's not that much work, but it is a little bit of the post-production, whatever. So I took a break, but now we're getting back into it, and I'm excited. It's been a while since we've chatted on the podcast. Yeah, we talked
Since
in
May
May.
was the last time.
In May. So what have you been up to since then?
Yeah, I've been up to quite a bit. Still composing here or there. Work has gotten a lot busier, especially in the summer. I was working overtime almost every day from June through August, and then had a few nice vacations around that time too. Went to the beach about 5 times in the summer. Then work has calmed down a little bit. Now I'm getting ready for the holiday season. November, I closed on a house, so here I am in my new location. My music room! Woohoo!
Nice. Congratulations, man. You had told me that the other day when we did a sound check, but congratulations again.
Thanks.
So how do you find in those months, how have you found doing all that stuff to stifle your creativity or kind of fuel it? I'm curious.
It doesn't stifle me. In some ways, that stuff like that can be a source of extra inspiration, a source of more songs to come down the road. This right now seems to be a phase of my life where not a whole lot of new stuff has come about, but I'm not one to force new compositions to exist. If I'm just forcing it, then it's not going to feel authentic. I like for everything that I write to be timeless in a sense. I don't just write for the sake of writing because it's, let's say, if I'm like, 10 months have gone by, I haven't written anything. I'm just going to write something just to say that I put something out. And then maybe like 5 more years, I won't like it. I don't want that to happen. I want my stuff to last for a really long time. So stuff like that can really be a source of inspiration, but of course also being cognizant of the fact that authenticity must rule.
Hey, I like that you said that. I totally resonate with that too. And I don't. Are you a big hip hop guy by any chance? Do you listen to any hip hop?
Not really.
I didn't think so because I know that you're mostly into jazz, prog. You never mentioned hip hop.
Yeah, never mentioned that.
Yeah, I do have. I listen to a decent amount of hip hop, and I have this one interesting little nugget that I've pulled from 2 hip hop guys. Which one is the RZA, who he's the guy that founded the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast where he was on there, and he said, "I wouldn't say my soul is mortal. I'd say it's immortal because at the end of the day, I can sit here and hum 'Please, Please, Please' by James Brown, and his soul is right here." Right. And he was talking about how he's, because he's releasing music, it kind of has that immortal feel. And then Jay-Z also said that on something very similar on My Next Guest, Needs No Introduction with David Letterman. He says, the goal is to make forever music. Music at the moment works, but the stuff I listened to today was made 50 years ago. And when we're creating is the goal, it's something that'll last forever, and
Yes.
When I heard that, I heard the Jay-Z one first, actually, and I was like, amen. I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, it changes your perspective. And I didn't always think that way, but it kind of slows you down and it keeps you sane at the same time,
Yes, because whenever I write something, I'm not one to just simply throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, yes, I do have my 25 chapter series that I call my self-portrait series, as well as some of my In the Dark videos on my YouTube channel, which are little moments of solo improvisations. They go on and on to whatever. But at the same time, there are some musical swirlings in my head that I will not let see the light of day. I mean, just because it just comes up doesn't necessarily mean it has to exist. There's some ideas that get thrown out, and then some things I do think like, yes, that works, I'll take that, and then that comes into being. And some of those self-portraits I've created have contained segments that eventually have given birth to some of my compositions. So I have a really active musical compositional uterus in a sense.
Yep, I'm just jotting a couple of things down because I wanted to talk about them. All right, so one question I have for you is, what number song are you up to now since May? Because I know
70.
you count. You're on 70. Okay, so did you find that I personally found for myself that as I wrote more songs, each one I'm much more particular about if I turn that into an actual song or not. Like in the beginning, I like it was like almost any song I wrote ended up being like a quote unquote like a song that I count as a song. But now almost the stuff I throw away is better than the stuff that I wrote in the beginning. Did you find that?
No, because whenever I bring something into being, or try to at least, it's not always with the expectation of something going to come out. It's like getting the creative juices to flow, and then if something comes out, it comes out. Something doesn't, it doesn't. And then maybe at a later date, I'll dig back into those dusty files and then come up with something.
And those dusty
You know what I
files
mean?
for you are the voice memo.
Yeah, voice memos plus the chapters of my self-portrait series, which I have eventually given rise to some of my originals now. Some of them are on my YouTube channel, not the whole series, but some of them are on my YouTube channel.
I was
I
looking
think
at those
20
and the into dark, right?
in the dark. Yep.
In the dark. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my next question. So
Mm-hmm.
talk about those a little bit because I noticed them and we didn't really talk about them at all last time.
So that began one day. I was just sitting in my room, and I was like, it's dark outside. I'll turn the lights out in my bedroom just to see what kind of ambiance that brings to the stuff that I play. And once I just played from nothing, just like did whatever just to see what comes out, and I was like, yeah, I can keep doing this. And then there became an In the Dark Part 2, and then it just went on and on and on. There's 7 chapters right now. The 3rd chapter in the series is a video called 302. And if you click on the video itself, it'll tell you it's In the Dark Part 3, but it's called 302 because of a particular moment that occurs at 3 minutes and 2 seconds in that video,
Okay.
if you pay close attention to what happens.
I think this is the one we were talking about the other day, right? Or is it not? The one with the cufflink?
Oh, the cufflink. So it wasn't 302. The cufflink moment was it's on my phone. It's not on the channel.
Okay.
So I was recording the sixth chapter of my self-portrait series. After a while, just call each installment by their ordinal number. So in this 6th, I'm just playing whatever, and then there's this moment where there's like a cut sound, and one of the cuff buttons on my suit that I was wearing at the time, because I came back from some event, got caught between a few of the keys. And I was like, yes, that's a pretty cool moment, so I kept it.
Nice, nice. Okay, so there's a different surprise at 3:02. So that'll
Yeah.
be an Easter egg. You don't have to say what it is. We'll all go check it out
People
after.
just have to check it out.
Exactly. So yeah, so you've been going around swimming on the beach, and you've been swimming in the ocean, relaxing on the beach, and moving and working hard. Has there been time in between that to go out and play at the open mic nights that you like to go to? Because I know you mentioned quite a bit of them last time. You had Frenchtown to Fine Grind and
Yep.
Steel Stacks. What's been going on in terms of the live music performance for Andrew Miles?
I still have had time to do those things. Steel Stacks, I don't often get to. That's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I don't often get to anymore because of the fact that I work Monday through Friday. The open mic is on a Thursday night, and to get from there and then get up early again the next morning to get to work in New Brunswick is, it's not really doable week to week to week. But this week I'm going to get to do that because of the fact that I happen to be off all this week. So I'll get to do that this coming Thursday.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
How,
Cedar
how
Grove,
have
I don't
those
get
been?
to... Was that?
How have those been?
Yeah, the one at Steel Stacks, it's been awesome. I really enjoy it there. They now have a house keyboard. They used to have a piano, but other than that, just the vibe is great. Really talented people, and just a really welcoming community. I first started going there in 2015, I believe, and that's a place that Evan told me about. And yeah, I really enjoy that open mic. But yeah, it's the same time as the one that happens in Cedar Grove, Cedar Beans. That one I don't really get to go to as often anymore because of the fact that I live so far away now. So I'll do the one in Little Falls on Sundays at the Fine Grind.
Cool. So when you play at different open mic nights, do you find yourself? We talked about last time how you generally kind of think of a set list beforehand. Do you consider the location in that? Does it make a difference depending on, because they'd have I guess another question loaded in there is like, how are the crowds different at those different places and the venues different, and how does that affect how you play?
Right. Generally speaking, it doesn't really affect how I play or what I play. But sometimes when I go in there having my predetermined set list in mind, and then depending on how the vibe is, I'm like, let's play this one instead of that. Not because I don't think they'll understand or whatever, because I don't really care what they think of what I play or how I write. It's just like maybe I want to bring out something that's energetic versus something that's a little bit softer and quieter at a certain moment. Especially if there's not a lot of people there, I'd be like, okay, let's bring out this like up-tempo, high-energy piece instead of this softer piece at this time. There's like maybe 3 or 4 people there at the moment. But then later on, if there's a lot of people there, if they all know me, then maybe I'll go with the softer piece. Or if it's my first time at a certain place, if it's my first time in a place, then I'll do a mix of like softer and more up-tempo stuff, so I can show multiple sides of me. Like, hey, this is Andrew. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I got all kinds of sides of me. Andrew Thomas Miles is not just this one little thing that I'm this, that, and the other too. Get to know the whole complexity of me.
Yeah, do you feel I have the same thing that I do, and I remember you said this on the last episode, and I love that. Like, I don't have a name for it, but it's almost just like showing your creative diversity, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I also don't really care what the people think, if they like what I'm listening to or not, except when I'm in my like uh discovery mode, whatever it is. Like, sometimes I'm paying attention to how the crowd is responding for my own. We talked about this. I think I do this a little more than you do with my writing, but I'll like want to see like if there's a certain vibe already going on and people are like bopping to the music or whatever, I'll see how I can keep that going as long as possible, and then I'll see when they trail off, and when I go back and listen to the recording again, I'm like, okay, that was cool, that went for like that long, maybe those songs go together and maybe I can jam in between, or like I use that as a tool. But what's interesting to me there is I've never thought about trying to like to me, when you say that, it almost is like a contrast. Like, there's a few people in the venue and you want to kick it up the energy with your playing. I actually do the opposite, which is interesting. I kind of try to like, I'll start real slow and quiet. Like, I think I'd have like 3-hour sets at a brewery, and over the summer in 2019 or 2018, this was going on. There were a lot of bus tours that would come through, and you'd start off, it's a 3-hour set, and it'd be empty, and you're just playing for the bartender and like the local guy that's there, right? So I'll start off with like my finger picking blues, soft, I'm just going. Maybe I'll sing each verse twice on a song because nobody's listening. Play some of my weirder covers. I'll like just whatever I'm doing. I'll be my current self as most as I can. And then I find as people start coming in and they start shouting requests at me that I don't want to play, I start trying to match that energy though. Like, I'm like, all right, they're asking me for something. If they're asking me for Allman Brothers and I don't know the Allman Brothers, I'm going to play my songs that are like my Irish drinking songs or whatever to bring up then I'm going to lean into that crowd, which is kind of the opposite of what you're doing. And I like that you're inspiring me a little bit. And maybe I'll try to just pick the vibe up when it's low instead of kind of surfing the vibe of the room.
It's like I'm going in there and saying, hey, wake up all y'all. Y'all came to hear some music, so come on.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. That's a very good, like, opening act mentality. That's the struggle that opening acts would have. You got to get people warmed up.
And I always find it strange that a lot of times when I go to open mics, the first 2 slots tend to be open at the time I sign up. I'm like, I don't understand why that is. I mean, is everybody like afraid of being the first one? I mean, is that a serious case of stage fright on a lot of people's parts? Like, maybe that's just my lifelong experience being in front of people talking, but I've never had that issue. I see people taking the list, getting to the list, and then they write their name as number 4 on the number 4 slot. I'm like, okay, there's 1, 2, and 3. Why not the first one? I mean, suppose other people sign up and they write in 5, 6, 10, 11, whatever. You're still the first one if nobody else takes the first 3 slots. Why not just take the first slot and be first? Unless you're just really not wanting to go first. But I mean, you're going to be first if no one else does it. Bystander effect.
I know. I've seen that a lot too, and I have conflicting thoughts on it. Like, I don't know the answer because I've done it before where I'm like, I don't want to go first. Sometimes if I'm coming on strong or I know that I'm playing good because I've been going each week or whatever, I'll leave those in case somebody wants to go first that's feeling shy. I'm like, I don't want to like, that kind of dynamic. But also, I do appreciate when those are open if I'm trying to just go in and go out. Like, if I'm like, oh, I got to be home by 8, and the thing starts at 7, I love when I go in and I'm like, woo, number 1's
That's one
open.
thing it's good for.
So now that I'm thinking about this, I'm gonna like that I'm gonna do as a best practice from now on. I'm gonna sign up as like number 3 or 4 on purpose first to leave those for if people need to go in and out really quick. Because usually if I go, I'm kind of hanging out. But yeah,
That's
I know.
one thing
Go.
That's one thing I hadn't thought about before. I mean, I'm not trying to like bash people who don't want to go
No,
up first
no.
because maybe they're shy. But yeah, I mean, that's also one thing that it could be as well. If they're people who need to be out of there at a certain time,
Yeah.
or maybe they're trying to think of others who may have to be out of there at a certain time.
Yeah, yeah, this is like an undiscussed topic for at least for me because it's something that happens in the moment and you don't care that much about it. But now that you're bringing it up, it's like the whole dynamic of a list at the open mics is a really interesting one. Like it's like there's the clusters then sometimes too. There's like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's people that like no, I want to be like number 9, or like they're the literal last one, and you're like okay. I guess it's for the same reason. Like they're like, I just want to hang out until the end and watch everybody, and then do my thing. Yeah, it's interesting. Do you want to play a song for us? We've been going for maybe about 20 minutes now. I think it'd be a good
Sure.
time to play something. Do you want to talk about it first?
Yeah, the first one I'll do is Shatter the Glass. Speaking of, like coming in with a high energy piece when there's few people in the room, let's just say. Yeah, that's a bit of an up-tempo one I wrote back in 2015 about the idea of like breaking through, like kicking down the walls, like tearing down all the stuff that keeps you from living your truth, being your authentic self, breaking through what keeps you from being you. So here's what that one is.
Sick, man. That was
Thank you.
awesome. That was a
Thanks.
little like funky a little bit. I liked it very
Yeah.
much. That's a cool effect. What you got? What do you have going on? That one at the end that you were kind of bending with. What is that?
The thing I did like toward like the very end,
Yeah, but it almost sounded like you had that like a wah effect going on the whole time.
that thing.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I have two wheels. I have a pitch bend wheel, which goes,
Oh,
and I have
cool.
this expression wheel, which sort of like bends this sound a little bit, like
Ah,
that thing.
cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
Cool. So, Shatter the Glass, right? When did you write this song?
2015.
2015. Okay. And what's sort of the genesis of it?
I was just well. That's a song that came to me in pieces over a period of like 2.5 years. Heard this little bit of melody one day. I was just humming it. I was like, okay, what is that going to turn into? And then later on, some other parts of it added on, and then some chords here or there. It's like, okay, so this is what it's going to be. 2015's moment, Shatter the Glass.
Nice.
Because back when I had my previous keyboard, there was always something I wanted to record with this particular synth and electric piano setting. And I was like, this is the moment for that one to come alive. Now that keyboard is no more because it died after 12 years. But that was the first one I got to record with that particular sound. But yeah, it has a new life in this keyboard now.
Yeah, and I think it's cool. Like, I mean, this is one where I appreciated the instrumentation you picked for it. We talked about this last time. This one works really well with an electric piano / synth, way more than it would, I feel like, on a piano, just because that melody line is so, like I said, like funky, right? And then you got kind of your ambient feeling going on around that, but it's cool. It's got that prog funk. You could hear that influence for sure.
Yeah.
So that's been going on for a while then, that influence, because this is from 2015. When did that start for you, the prog rock stuff?
The prog stuff started in 2016, actually. But I've always had a bit of a musical open mind.
Interesting. Okay.
Harrison actually got me into prog.
Right. I think you mentioned that on the last episode. And what was the first thing he showed you?
He showed me stuff like first was like Animals as Leaders. There's a band called Chan. They're more along the lines of like math rock, almost like prog, but yeah, there's that, and then Pliny, and after a while, it just took a life of its own. I was listening to a bunch of stuff, and then eventually Evan and I started hanging out more and jamming more often, and then I find out he's also into prog. So I was like, Evan, you and Harrison could have a whole lot of talks. And then eventually I did get them to meet. It took a while, but they did eventually meet. But yeah.
Oh, cool. Did you all jam together?
We didn't jam together, but we have hung out together a bunch of times and like shared a lot of musical influences and whatnot. We all three have pretty open minds when it comes to music.
I can imagine, I don't know Evan, but based off you and Harrison, I'm sure it'd be an interesting conversation.
I did tell Evan that he's got to get on this podcast.
He does. Yeah. The good. If he's open, hook it up, because I'd love to have him on here. And I think it'd be cool for any listeners out there to, hear the story unfold and start to, you know what podcasting my style kind of reminds me of? I was thinking about it this morning. In Zelda, did you ever play like Zelda?
A little bit, a long time ago.
Or even Pokemon, like any of those ones where they're like high, up above view or whatever. I don't know what that's called, the third person view or whatever. It reminds me of the map. What is it?
Bird's eye view, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like that bird's eye view. Yeah. When you're walking and like the map is all dark, and as you keep walking, it kind of like reveals the next piece as you're going.
So.
I'll send you a picture of it. But yeah, like that's basically what it is. You can like see on your map where you are, but only in places that you walked. In Zelda, it's until you find the map, I think. I'm probably saying it wrong, and somebody's going to message me after this and tell me what I mean. It might be like StarCraft. It might be some game has this concept, though, where you're like, when you're walking, it reveals where you've walked, but you can't see the rest of the map.
Yeah.
until you walk there. That's what podcasting kind of reminds me of, because I'll like have a conversation with you and we go out on all these branches, and then well, I had a whole conversation with Andrew, and then Andrew was like, you should have Harrison and Andrew on the podcast, and then we kind of have you two added, and then there's these shadings in between that get colored in. It's really cool. It's like a web.
The common threads revealed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Speaking of which, let's talk about a little bit how. So we talked last time about. Wait, where did I write I wrote this down in a different notebook. Oh, okay. No, this isn't what I'm going to change gears here. I thought this was connected and it was a good transition, but whatever. We're going to just let it ride, because I wanted to ask you something. You talked a lot last time about hearing songs or coming up with song ideas in your dreams, and I don't think we dived deep enough into that. I'd love to, if there is anything more in that, I'd love to kind of explore it, because it's really neat. So how does that happen? Do you are you playing piano in your dream and you write the song, or is it just like something you see? Like how does that actually happen?
It's just something I happen to hear in the background in each of the times that it's happened. It's not me playing. It's just some melody I hear in the background. I'm like, you know what? This could be used. So far, it's happened like 9 times. I forgot when the last one was, but the first one of those was a song. The song's called Superwoman that came to my mind the very first time. Had nothing to do with any kind of superheroes or any kind of Marvel characters. It just happens to be in the dream. I was like sitting in front of a TV watching Comcast Digital Cable's music choice channels, because that's what I used to do a lot back then. And on the screen was this title, Superwoman, and I heard this melody in the background. I was like, "Yep, that's what the song's going to be." That's all that was.
That's cool though. That could be like a music video,
Yep.
I like that. Okay.
But that one got written later on, because the second song that came to me in a dream got written first. And that's why that song is called The First One Came Second.
Ah, okay. So the first one came second, and was it the same kind of thing? It was just in the background? That one?
Yep.
Okay. And when you wake up, is it still going on in the back of your head and you remember it and you kind of pick it out on the, figure it out really quick and record it while you're fresh? Or does it stay all day?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes not exactly, because I've had some moments where it's like, oh God, I should have like hummed it to myself in my voice memos app, and then it's gone. But yeah, if I don't do that,
real quick.
Yeah, if I don't hum it to myself a whole lot of times during the day, or if I don't get to my voice recorder app, PDQ, then it's gone.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good thing I had the presence of mind to do that those first 2 times.
Yeah. It's like it's like a Snapchat message or something. Those things, they go away. Like, okay. And so with the dreams, do you do any work to try to make that happen? Like, do you like dream journal or anything like that to make sure that you have better dream recall?
I actually haven't done a whole lot of dream journaling, but for some of the songs that came to me in dreams, they're so vivid that I end up writing about what happened then. So I think probably the only one time where I had a dream song that I was able to write all about was Departure, which is quite the story, because I remember like writing a few paragraphs about what happened in Departure, then sending it to a couple of people. I might still have it in my notes app, but yeah, it's about a time when I was like cutting a series of people out of my life, because pretty much anyone that knows me or knows me well knows that I don't take BS, and that I'm gonna smell toxicity pretty quickly, and I'm not afraid to just take swift action. I got good scissors. Some people think that's cold, but they don't know what kind of mess that they are in the midst of, and it's going to take them down too if they don't realize it soon enough.
Sure, and I'm really enjoying this theme, right? Like you already shared these songs with me, but and that's going to be the the next one I'm assuming that we'll transition to in a few minutes, but it's really cool to get this context and to hear it applied to your music, especially because it's instrumental music, because these two songs are on the same theme, right? Like we're talking about shattering the glass, right? Breaking through something, but also cutting something out. And it's almost like, did you ever read the book? You're reminding me a lot of this book today. Did you ever read the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield? You know that book? It's a really short book. It's really cool. You should read it. I think you'd dig it. Even on audiobook. Yeah. And he basically he's an author, right? Like I never read any of his other books, actually. I've only read this book. I've read it many times, though. But he's an author, and he talks about how he writes like a professional. Like he's like, if you're a professional, you got to show up to work every day. And then he also is, like myself, I think that's how I got into him, is, I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty into like ancient texts. Specifically, like, I mean, I'm not well read in them in terms of breadth. So I'm somewhat into reading these like ancient texts. So I'm a big fan of the Odyssey and the Iliad. So he got me when I heard that he every day before he starts working, he recites the invocation of the muse from the Odyssey. But he basically talks about how there's like this resistance that he thinks of almost like the shark from Jaws that he has to fight off every day, and it can come in any form in his life to distract him from working with the muse. And he like almost believes in the muse. He'll say he believes that the muse is like a real person or a real deity. And he's obviously, a little exaggerating, I'm sure, but any artist knows what that is, because you're writing something that's kind of more than yourself. You're kind of just just a vessel for it, if in the right circumstance. And to do that, you can't have that toxicity in your life, I don't think. So you have to get good at making the time to do the things that make you feel good. Is that kind of the theme that you're talking about with both of these?
Authenticity, yeah. Always, because especially as one who grew up being a very misunderstood person throughout his life. I mean, since early on, I've been misunderstood by my peers, my family, my teachers, you name it. So the sort of screw all y'all mentality had to start early on, and it's been with me ever since. But of course, it's not like a claws come out, I'm gonna get everybody. It's not like that extent. I mean, that's calmed down. That used to be there a while ago, but yeah, I'm not like expecting the worst all the time. I'm not like hyper vigilant. I mean, I'm still sort of like a little bit vigilant in the sense of like, trying to foresee possible attacks or whatever, but not like always like, oh God, who's going to do this, that, or the other, because then I'd be driving myself crazy. But yeah, always being who I am and not going to just get sucked into any things. I don't just nod my head, say anything. I don't just go along with whatever people tell me. If something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to just follow it. I'm going to be asking, okay, why? What is the reason why we have to do this? Or why are you telling me this, that, or the other? Because I'm just trying to understand what this is about. I'm not going to let you screw me over, Sure. I've always had a problem with the because I said so mentality. I've always had a problem with, being told, this is the way it's been done for like 50 or 1,000 years. So it was good enough for them. It's good enough for you. No.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that too. And so one thing, okay, I have two questions here now. I'm going to write them down again because they're both good. The first one is, I think it's easy for anyone that struggles with that to know where that came from. It could be a figure in your life or whatever. But where does the other half of it come from you? Where does that like no nonsense for this because I said so come from? Does that come from within, you think? Because I have that too, and I don't have the answer myself, right? Like I'm putting you on the spot with this deep question of this, but I'm curious for other creative types because I'm sure a lot of us artists have this sort of similar thing, and like I'm just curious where do you draw from that energy?
I think that's just always been a part of me. That sort of no nonsense. I'm not going to take people's crap. I'm not going to just let people walk all over me stuff. Um, I guess from early on, there's been times when people told me like you can't do this, that, or the other. And then they don't hear my side of the story when they want to like scold me for what they think happened, but what they think happened is not all of what happened. And then when you have moments like that early on, they kind of stay with you because the feeling of having your voice silenced, you being treated as voiceless, you don't ever totally let go of that because it's like you're not going to let people just suppress you. You're an individual for a reason. You were not created to be a carbon copy. So there's a reason why you have that sort of discomfort within you whenever that happens to you. You're not going to just let someone steal your voice away. Once it's happened before, you're not going to let it happen too many more times anymore.
Yeah, and when you're little, I mean, it could be... I completely agree. That makes a lot of sense. And I haven't thought about this before. Thanks for sharing that. Like, I'm remembering myself. It's flashing in, and I think of my children as well, my son specifically, because he's like 3, so he's old enough now. But there's times, too, where you're operating, and you'll be doing something almost innocently, just being yourself, especially at younger ages, and that agency is taken from you in a way, even mentally. And when I get it. I mean, I think of one specific, this isn't the only time. So if people are going to write down, this is the only time, I'm not going to use it as my only time that fueled this feeling within me. But there's one very pertinent time where I was maybe in 5th grade and I started taking karate. And this older girl, she was like, I wasn't in 5th grade. Sorry, I was in kindergarten. And this girl was in 5th grade, right? I remember it was an after-school activity. Our parents were there. It was like bingo night or something. And she like pushed me onto the ground and I didn't know. And she was like a bully. Like I knew her, she was a bully from school or whatever. And she had pushed me on the ground, but I had been taking karate. So I got back up and I like whipped her down on the ground and was like, don't do that to me or something. And somebody came over and like got mad at me and said that, you don't hit girls or whatever, and you can't do that. And I thought that was kind of bullshit, honestly, because I was like, as a 5-year-old, now as an adult, I might even reconsider it. But at that time, I'm like, she's in 5th grade. I'm in kindergarten. I can't even hurt her. I just kind of like, I was surprised she even got knocked down with my, 1 month of karate moves, that they work.
Right. And she came and attacked you first.
Unprovoked completely. Like I remember the day, and I had to buy her flowers and bring her these flowers to apologize. What? And I remember as a kid, like this is one of those things you're talking about, right? Like where I'm like, I don't have any control here. I have to do it. I remember my mom even telling me, like the school didn't say I had to do this, but there was a whole thing about it, and she almost was like, look, you're just gonna bring this girl the flowers and apologize, and we're just gonna move on and not talk about it.
Even when she didn't deserve it.
Yeah, but I still remember that today.
Yeah,
that as a kid, like they stole my agency, right? Like I wouldn't have brought those flowers possibly as a kid. As an adult, I might. Not because she's a girl and not because I was smaller or whatever it is, or, just because we had a fight and maybe I just want to live with this person in school and just say like, listen, we had it out, like, let's move on. But when you're in kindergarten, you're more just like, no, like she pushed me, she knocked me down. I was doing nothing but standing there just playing. She like wanted my basketball or something. And I was like, no, you can't have it. And she just pushed me and I was like, oh, hell no. Like I'm going to come at, I'm going to stick up for myself like they told us to do in karate, right? Like in karate, and that's, as a kid, that's where you get conflicted because you have karate telling you never hit anyone unless they hit you first. But if they hit you first and you need to defend yourself, then defend yourself. And there I did. And then they said, actually, what you did wasn't allowed. And it's like, am I even better off knowing the karate? But yeah, that's my little little add to that. It's tricky to find that voice. That's why I was asking. Because I mean, for me, it kind of came. I guess it came from my parents in those situations. Like I had a
Hmm.
close relationship with them, but they'd be like, you had kind of. It'd always kind of be like, we're gonna let you understand that we think this is wrong, but we're still gonna mend things over publicly, kind
Hmm.
of thing. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I always would do that now. Maybe I will. Maybe it's part of me. But yeah, that's an interesting concept. Am I sparking anything within you from this tangent?
Yeah, I mean, the word conflicted is a good word to describe and stuff like that because it reminds me of a time when I was 5 years old in kindergarten. When I was at this little Montessori school that used to be in South Orange, and oftentimes for lunch I would bring in a bologna sandwich, and oftentimes I wouldn't eat the bread. I would just have the bologna because I was like, okay, I got the protein done, out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Next, one particular teacher there was really irritated about the fact that I wouldn't eat the bread. So after a while, there'd be times like she'd be like, Andrew, make sure you eat your bread. And then once I was like, you're gonna eat the bread today. And I looked at her like rolling my eyes or whatever my reaction was. And then one particular day, she saw that I didn't eat my bread, just had the bologna only. She came up to me, took my bread, and started force feeding it in my mouth.
Oh
She took
no,
it upon on herself to do
that's
that, and I was like,
ridiculous.
"No, stop!" and whatnot. And she kept on trying to do it. And of course, I was crying, whatever, because I was like, "This is wrong." My parents never heard about it
Yeah.
until one day, about 9 years thereafter. I'm 14, and then we're having a discussion about whatever. It just comes up, and then my mom and dad are like, "Why wait 9 years to talk about that?" I'm like, "When you're 5 years old, and when you're under a cloud of the adults are always right."
Mm-hmm.
You start to think that, you start to sort of blame yourself for that sort of abuse,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's that internal conflict of this is not right, what that teacher did, but then you've been told all the time, you don't question the adults, you don't question those in authority, and then it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I agree. And this is it's interesting this is coming out right now because I'm thinking even about my own songwriting and there's an element of this in there that I talk about and I let that out, unleash it in my music
Hmm.
much more than I do in regular life. Even though I do unleash it in regular life, but if you listen to my music, there's this element of that, and I have my own justifications for it and like all this different shit. But like at some degree, I do enjoy just speaking in that voice. And it
Hmm.
might be the 5-year-old of me, but like, I have an unreleased song right now, right? Like it's like the first song on I have a completed album at this point. I just have to record it, right?
Hmm.
But the first line has been one I've had for a while, and it says, "It's what do you do when the stem of the crown hasn't a clue? Do you follow him down?" Right? And it's like the stem of the crown obviously is the neck of the king, right?
Hmm.
But it's that question. So like the song is called "Don't Follow Him Down," and it's a play on an old folk song called "Baby Let Me Follow You Down." That's
Hmm.
about I'd do anything in this God Almighty world if you just let me follow you down. I'd buy you a diamond ring. I'd buy you a wedding gown. I'd do anything. So this song is
Hmm.
like, don't follow him down. Like, don't do that shit.
Hmm.
And I love that song. It took me like 2 years to write, seriously, because it was just, I didn't need to, so I just was playing with it all the time. And
Yeah.
it goes through these iterations of like, who is EM apostrophe? Like, it's not just this lover. Like, it could be the king, and one, it's like the whiskey bottle, right? Like, and like the people that are drinking problems. Then there's obviously the girl, but I used the Black Velvet Band girl from the Irish music that kind of she steals a watch, blames it on the guy, and he goes to jail. So I use her for
Hmm.
that, and then that's kind of the song. But it's that concept that comes up a lot in my songwriting, and I'm learning that comes up a lot in yours too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's that energy, that force of this fist clenching.
Yeah. This fist,
Yeah,
this, you're not going to take this away from me sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so why don't you play Departure?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Hell yeah.
And
Dude,
yeah,
I love that effect at the end. It's just so cool.
that's why I bought this keyboard, because it had those two things.
Yeah, it's so cool. I have like a Korg analog delay little like handheld module thing that I got that lets you do that on there, and it's that. I love it. That was a good ending to it. You know what? I was trying this time intentionally to see where my mind wanders while you're playing after our conversation.
Right.
And I don't know why this came in there, but I love it. It was kind of like the Charlie Brown people. They take over the classroom, right? And Linus is sitting and he's like, I ain't playing no normal Charlie Brown music anymore. I got the synth going and we're departing.
Schroeder's coming off.
know?
And he's not playing piano anymore. He's playing synth now.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. I kind of
Uh-huh.
got that vibe. Like it's like a montage of them just like taking over the classroom,
Yeah.
like on
Exactly.
Walking Dead when they take over this prison or something,
It's hot in here, you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, that was awesome. So what are you departing from in that song in mentally?
Departing from toxicity. That's all that was happening in
The
that
toxicity. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Because
Cool.
a few specific little highlights in that dream were I was just sitting at home watching TV, and then for all of a sudden I go like down the hallway to my bedroom, whatever, and like, what the heck are you doing here? He's like, oh, just no, get out of here, get out. And then this person's like, they're not moving fast enough. I'm like, get out. It's like I'm pushing the person out of the door. And then I get him out, and for all of a sudden I walk back inside. Someone's sitting on my couch, like, what are you doing here? Like, and then I'm like shoving them out too. And after a while, just get in my car, just like drive down the highway. And it's like, I'm driving pretty far too. And then it's like, the freedom of being away from this mess finally once and for all. And then this song starts coming up in the background. I'm like, yeah, I'll use that.
Man, I like that. I think that would be a really cool music video, by the way. I keep bringing this up, but it would work really well. Or even if you were already outside and it's like a flashback, so it's like, and then when you're going crazy, it shows you in there, It could be cool. Yeah, I like that one. And the last song that you had sent me also has this kind of vibe to it, right? But it's more about building trust, right? So that's Keys to My Inner Sanctum, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about that? I mean, we have some time, but I figured we'd transition right into that and chill there for a little bit.
Yeah, so what I often say when I talk about this song is that, if you ain't got the keys to my inner sanctum, you ain't getting in. It's like, I'm the kind of person who will not reveal certain vulnerable things about myself until I can see in the other person that they get it. If I can see that they're, not a judgmental person, if they seem open-minded, they're not like stagnant and like retrograde, they're not stuck in the past or whatever. They're a kind of person who, even if they might not fully understand something, they have an openness to try to understand what that experience is like or whatever. They have enough empathy to be able to see through another person's eyes and understand what another person's experience is, even if they don't fully understand it. If they have that and they're not, a judgmental scumbag, then yeah, we can get along pretty well. But it's like there's keys here. It's like I don't just open up all that easily unless I can see that someone has that. But I can tell that I can also easily tell when someone is not worthy of getting this. If you don't get this, you ain't getting this. So yeah.
Sure. And does that manifest itself in a meta, like in a music way ever? Like, do you ever find yourself not able to express yourself with other musicians? And you're like, if you're not getting it, I'm just not even going to bother with you? Or is it more in your waking life, in your normal life that this has?
It's more so in my waking life. Most musicians I'm able to tell it all with, unless, when talking with them, they just happen to be musicians. I see something in them like, can't talk about this. Can't talk about that.
I see. Yep. Okay. Totally. I got you. And then, how do you approach? Well, it's going to be different for all 70 songs, right? But for this idea, right? So I'm noticing a pattern here, and it's totally interesting to me. And We touched upon this in the last episode, but in this one, I'm really letting it unfold, which is the difference between writing instrumental music versus using your words to express these ideas, right? Because we're talking about the same, like even my song right before, right? Like I'll continue on. I'll say, when the captain says, "Crew, with this ship we must drown, but take it from me, don't follow him." That's a whole thing that you can almost express in the same idea, but it's in a different kind of vehicle that we use to do it. Right. And this definitely happens. This idea happens in my life as well. And I also think of it as not even as much as a inner sanctum. I mean, I'm sure maybe that's there, but we talked about this graph traversal with me. And, I don't know if I go as deep as I go wide. And I think I do go deep too. But sometimes I think of it as we talked about with the hip hop and the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm big on them, right? And they're huge on kung fu movies. And one of the biggest ones that they talk about a lot is the 36 Chambers of Shaolin. I don't know if you ever saw this movie before, but to become a kung fu master, this guy, like, I don't know, people die, and he wants to be. His friends die during a revolution, and he feels helpless about it, so he joins the Shaolin Temple to be a monk and to learn the kung fu. And they say to do the kung fu, you got to go through all of these lessons and all of they call them the chambers, right? And there are all sorts of things. Like, it's like you can't eat dinner until you walk across the river without falling in on logs floating in the water, and he's there all night and he's got to figure it out, and then he can eat his dinner. And then the next chamber is you got like 2 candles lit on the side of your head, and you got to follow like this thing that's moving in the other room, and if you turn your head, you get them burnt. And as he unlocks reveals, he eventually becomes the best fighter, right? But you can't learn the thing before until you master this chamber here.
Right.
And
there's a sequence.
It's cool because it's a sequence, and then the reason I like it, like that metaphor, that when you hear them talking about stuff, they'll always say that's a whole nother chamber, right? That's like a thing Wu-Tang Clan fans will say. They'll be like, "You want to talk? We're talking about departure. You want to talk about keys to my inner sanctum? That's a whole nother chamber, right there. Like, that's a whole different thing."
Love
and
that.
sometimes you just don't. They're not ready for that chamber.
Exactly.
You gotta even like.
You have to pay this toll to get to this part.
Sorry, I got a sore throat. I'm just drinking. Anything else you want to talk about with inner sanctum, keys to your inner sanctum? What does the key look like? Do you picture it in your head?
No metal Schlage key or master key, whatever the brand is. I was key shopping a month ago. But nothing like that, but it's more like the key is a concept. It's like those who are able to understand this thing in me are the ones that happen to hold that key or keys, or keys, and then they happen to have found their way in. Because like, yes, I'm so glad that you can understand me. I'm glad that you see me and still enjoy the view. Welcome aboard.
Sure. And how do you manifest? Okay. I'm remembering now. I went on a whole tangent, as I do, but my original question was, how do you turn this idea of keys to your inner sanctum into the musical idea when you come up with that? Like, how are you taking that theme and trying to embody it in this song for the listener to listen to? Give them the key.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens the other way around where like the musical idea comes first and I'm like, yes, I can see how that can sort of fit into this idea. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I do. Happens like that.
You think that was the case with this one?
Yeah, I think that was the case with that one. I do have songs where I have like this phrase that I want to use, and then ruminating on that brings out something. Because that's how my song called "The Internal Pendulum of Misalignment" came about. That was back in 2017.
Say the name again.
The Internal Pendulum of Misalignment.
Okay. Oh, nice. I like that. I love your titles.
I get
they're really good. They really are.
Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could totally understand doing it being able to choose both of those ways. I mean, that happens to me too. Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting all this stuff. Oh, yeah. One other thing with this. When you name the song Keys of My Inner Sanctum, I would think there might be a key change. Do you change keys?
There is no key change, actually.
It should be Key to My Inner Sanctum then, Andrew.
The keys. I mean,
yeah.
Same
no,
idea,
I'm just
but
kidding.
yeah.
I was
Yeah,
just
I get
curious.
it.
What key do you play? Do you change the key ever? Is the key play in any subliminal way?
So this one's weird in the sense, it's kind of like a C minor, but it's not really C minor. It's So I start off with this chord. It's a C major 7 flat 5. So it's like, let me put the piano on. And then I go to this D major 7. Then hello, listeners. Andrew T. Miles here. The second chord of the Keys to My Inner Sanctum is not a D major 7th. It is a D dominant 7th. It just stays with those two chords, and I just do stuff with them. There's some other stuff on my right hand that sort of like makes it a little bit more than just those chords. So I improvise mainly in like sort of like some funky mess of like F sharp minor, but has a C in it. I don't know what you call that key, but sometimes when I'm composing, I'm not really thinking of what key is it in. I'm just like, I throw my hands down, and then I'm like, does this sound right? I'll identify the exact chords later on if I absolutely need to, such as if someone's going to play with me. But yeah, in the moment, it's like, I'm not trying to say like, I'll throw a C minor 11th here or an F 9th or whatever, this, that, and the other. No, I'm not thinking along those lines.
Yeah, I figured. I was just prying you extra pedantically this time because it's called Keys of Inner Sanctum. You know? Yeah, why don't you play it? Let's hear it, and then maybe we'll talk about some of those technicalities.
Yeah.
Nice. And I love the use of, in all of these pieces today, but especially in this one, I love we talked about this last time, just the contrast of texture on that one. I think it's because it was mostly just, like the traditional piano kind of sound that you could hear from most of the parts. The way you play, I really like that. Like, it's like you hear the splashes of the chords, and then just a little like that's the inner sanctum right there. I almost could hear it saying key to your inner sanctum. In that little melody. I'm sure that's not what you're saying, but in my mind, I'm hearing that. But yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I loved too how. Again, you probably didn't envision this if you wrote it beforehand, but I like how it starts with that little piece in that little pocket, right? You got that little melody that you're kind of enveloping, right?
Yeah.
With the chords. And at one point, it's just like, okay, you're in the inner sanctum, and it's out.
Yeah.
Like those notes spread all out all over the place. And I thought I appreciated that.
It's like, here's the Ziploc, and then everything else, like, here's all the things that make me me. Here's my little complexities. Here's the weird stuff. Here's the big stuff. Here's the rough stuff. And then we're going to close the bag back up again. This is what it is. Next person.
Yeah. I really enjoy that. That's really cool. Again, there's so much like visual that could happen here, and it happens in my mind whenever I listen to your music, and I think that the In the Dark will be an interesting exploration for me with your stuff, because I want to hear how that manifests with you too, because I'm sure when you're in the dark, you're thinking about that a lot.
A little bit.
I'm not sure of it, but maybe I'm asking it. Yeah, yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to say. This keeps happening to me. Sorry, y'all. Sorry, Andrew. This is the first podcast in 4 months. This is what happens. I'm not sharp.
It's okay.
This is like I'm like the pocket knife with the self-sharpening scissors, and I haven't used them for a while, so we're self-sharpening here today.
Here we go.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing those pieces with us, Andrew. That was really,
Definitely.
really special. I always
Thanks.
love that.
Yeah.
What else is up? You got anything else on your mind that you want to share?
Since I mentioned the internal pendulum of misalignment, there might be a good one to throw in there, since that's also is like sort of along the same theme of what we're going on as well, like authenticity and not letting yourself be led astray, because that's what that kind of song is about as well. Like internal pendulum is like the idea of like how you might know someone who's like never sure of what they want in life, like never sure what they want to do. Like, okay, they're easily pulled in many different directions. They'll never put their foot down because they don't really know what they want. They don't really know what they're about, because I guess they never thought of themselves as worthy of being, like respected or whatever. Like they just won't put their foot in. They won't stand firm. So they're always out of touch with who they really are, because they put themselves on a shelf to be kicked around and tossed aside. So the internal pendulum of misalignment is about the idea like you can be easily led astray if you're not clear and standing firm in who you are.
Okay. So it's a misaligned pendulum. So
A
you can never
misaligned
actually...
self, and it's like when you're swinging like a pendulum, you can't, like, it's like you're this, you're that, you're never just firmly rooted.
I see. Okay. I like that. I could dig that idea. Yeah. I ask because I have my own, the poetic idea of a pendulum in my mind. So I try to frame it up against it. Yeah, I can dig that. Yeah. Because I've experienced it not in that sense, but I always think of it as like, I might write a song about this. Mine would be called As the Pendulum Swings. That's the name. But that's all I have for the song. But it's like, to me, my experience with it is it's more like dealing with the chaos of things. It's like no matter what, the pendulum's going to swing the other way. And it seems like certain people, right? Like some folks try to stay steady through the chaos, and sometimes the pendulum will swing. And it's like, I've said it to folks at work before, like not even at my own work. This is where I got it from somebody at work that said the pendulum will swing, the other way. And it's like, depending on the toxicity even of a workplace, sometimes you'll see that pendulum swing, and I think of it with babies too. They're pendulums, like they're born, and us as musicians, right? We're thinking about. I told a manager once at work that musicians like to harmonize things. Like I want to get
Yeah.
everyone to get along. We like harmony, right? We want things to feel and look good, but when babies are born, right, it's almost like they're this pendulum. They can cry or they can laugh, and there's nothing in between. And as things slow down, they're gonna not, cry as
Right.
much and not be as happy, and they'll be an adult who's kind of just
Steady.
Yeah. So it's
Because
interesting.
as they go through life, their personality starts to, get shaped. When you're born, when you're just a newborn, you don't know who you are yet. You can't even form memories just yet. And then as you spend more time alive, and then like a thing of clay, you get shaped and then sculpted and this, that, and the other. And then of course something in you, becomes a part of the process. Like, okay, so this is what I do. This is what I'm about. This is what I lean toward. This is what I don't cry as much about. This is what I do tend to get upset about, and then so forth. Then as you go through life, become like 6 years old, 10 years old, 20, and so forth. Yeah.
And yeah, and this misalignment is almost like somebody's coming up and taking that pendulum and just turning it a little bit, and then it starts swinging again, but it's swinging not on that same path that you would be on. Interesting. Yeah.
And then when someone's firmly rooted, they try to take that and say, they try to steady it back, because they know that what they're really meant to be. It's not meant to go like van, 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 like everywhere a million times. They're meant to just be.
Yes.
Yes.
I gotcha. All right, we're there.
Striving for consistency. That's what that's about.
It's the pendulum swinging not in line. It's the pendulum when you rock it, and if it's that one with the balls, like the 20 balls, they would be rocking in all different directions.
One way to see it, yep. It wants to be consistent. It wants to be, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, you could
here's
play
that.
that. Do you want to play it?
Yeah.
All right, wait. We'll have you play that on the way out. I have one more question for you.
Sure, yeah.
It's the second. It's going to be a bounce back and then back in, because I wanted to ask you this before and I forgot to ask. So we were talking about all these conventions and breaking, shattering the glass and cutting out toxicity. Where do you? I've been really thinking about this in terms of software development recently. It's come up and it's in dissonance with my this theme we've been talking about today, and I've been not struggling through it, but just using it as sort of mind candy, So I'm going to pose the same sort of scenario to you, which is in software, and in psychology, you start to think about habit and how users are creatures of habit and they prefer their habits. So if you do something that's unexpected, they're going to notice and they're going to possibly not like it. Musicians know this very well, right? Like if you want to write a song that's not in 4/4, they're going to notice. So
Yeah.
you better do it on purpose. Like that's the thing. And we know this from jazz, right? There's that old jazz thing, like you got to know the rules to break the rules. And there's a Bob Dylan lyric that somebody in a design user experience book talked about, and it's a really interesting little tidbit, right? And they say there, and I know I've never thought of the Dylan lyric this way, but I do now, and I think I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a cool interpretation, right? He has this line that's often not misquoted, but quoted out of context, called "To live outside the law, you must be honest," right? And in the terms of the usability standpoint, that guy said, he basically said, you got to be honest with yourself. If you're going to be breaking the rules, you better know that what you're doing is better than what the rules are.
Yes.
And I am struggling with that internally. So I'm just throwing all that info out there and seeing where it sits with you, because I think it's kind of interesting,
It does sit well with me, because the idea of knowing why you do what you do. Because when you're going to shatter some glass, break a big rule in a way that's kind of noticeable, not that you're trying to be noticed, but it's about you have something to say. I mean, you should always be guided by purpose as opposed to just by protocol and instruction and whatever people tell you to do, what the top dog says or whatever. Yeah, so I've run into that quite often in my life. Even in, the workforce and stuff like that. Not as much in recent days because I'm very happy at the job that I work in. But yes, I've been through that. But even outside of work, in various situations, but like when I was younger in school or up against certain family members who say da 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 because I said so, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I've always been one to sort of challenge stupidity. I've been one to challenge stuff that doesn't make sense. I've always been a very logical person to a point where some people think that, that I'm too serious. Oh, no, it's not that I'm too serious. I can take a joke. It's just that people think that because I am very thoughtful about what I do, that I think very deeply about things, they don't see why I do what I do. Maybe they just don't get what it is to be guided by purpose as opposed to, an instruction. Don't just simply follow the rules just because it's a rule. Follow them because you understand why it makes sense. But when something doesn't make sense, don't be afraid to question it. Because if nobody ever had the courage to question the status quo, we wouldn't have any growth or evolution in history. For example, we wouldn't have gone from medieval to Renaissance, to the Baroque era, to classical, to Romantic era, to where we are now. We wouldn't have development in other kinds of genres of music. Like jazz wouldn't have come out of like big band era to what was called Dixieland a long time ago, and so forth, into like bebop era and so forth. Wouldn't have fusion. I mean, that took a step outside to create that. And of course, people got criticized about starting that kind of stuff. But whenever there's any kind of transition in history, there's always people who critique the ones that step outside the lines. It's like step out of line and then you're ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
They're called rebels, but they're not necessarily rebelling. They're saying, hey, it's time for change. It doesn't have to be just this. Because when change is seen as a threat instead of a time for re-examination, the result is stagnation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's this. That's why I like that quote, right? Because it's like it challenges you to question what you're doing. Is it in the sake of change, or is it because what you're doing is better, right? And like, and better can be defined by you, right? Like you just have to be honest with yourself, right? Like if you need a change and you want to do something different because it's not working for you, you want to play piano, but you don't want to play classical, right? Like. That's being honest with yourself, right?
Yep,
and
that's why I
like
did
that.
not want to choose a classical instructor when I started taking lessons.
Yeah, exactly. That example is a good example of it. And anyway, yeah, that was my kind of. I didn't want to gloss over that because I thought that was an interesting little tangent. But anyway, time warp back to. I'm not going to cut that in the episode. We're going to go out of order there. No, I mean I'm not going to stitch it. We'll go back to. Now, just know, thanks again for coming. I gotta go to a meeting in a few minutes, so we gotta cut it, and we'll end on your last song. And I forgot it already. The misaligned pendulum.
Yeah, the internal pendulum of misalignment.
Yes, internal pendulum of misalignment. Love it. Okay, cool. Before you go, you want to give any plugs? Where should people go? YouTube, right? Mm-hmm.
They should find me on my YouTube channel, ATMiles88. That's ATM as in Mary, ILES as in Sam, 88. One word with no spaces.
Cool. Yep, and I'll put the link in the show notes too. So if you're listening to this podcast and there are details or show notes, check it out. The link should be in there. And thanks again, Andrew. We'll set it up again soon. Hopefully we could get Evan on here, and maybe then maybe we'll do like one with Evan and then one with the both of you. That could be cool.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. Anyway, take it away on the internal pendulum of misalignment. Is that it?
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
It's harder than you think to remember these things on the spot, I'll tell you.
I get it. Especially when
Go
as
ahead.
long as my titles.
Yeah. That's fine, though.
Thank ya.